Heading into this week, we knew that California had the chance once again to launch into a single-payer healthcare system. That does not mean that a lot of lefties who were watching this had much hope, but they did think it could pass or it could get voted down. We could get the single-payer healthcare, or at least we would know on the record those who refused to vote for it. But even that proved naive in hindsight because they didn't even vote on it. Assembly Bill 1400 by Assemblyman Ash Kalra did not have the necessary votes to move forward ahead of a key deadline Monday. Instead of forcing a vote that could be, in the words of the LA Times, politically damaging for some of his Democratic colleagues, Kalra opted to let the bill die. And so we did not even get a vote. I was watching it live actually. And when they suddenly adjourned, I thought, wait, did I not get how this was supposed to go? I mean, I'm watching a live session of the legislature. There's a very good chance I was misreading the schedule, but no, they just didn't vote for it, Michael, which I guess was always an option, but I would have liked to have had people go on the record.
Yeah, in the sort of the political fantasy of it, you want people to go on the record for doing it. It's also why they didn't have a vote. It's a better odd year bill in terms of political practicality than it is an election year bill. And you have assembly, you have people running for assembly and state senate. And again, those aren't always even years. But the issue that you have here is that there is the question of how this would have been funded. And that in California, that gets put to the people. And in a year where the Democrats are trying to win back House seats and trying to keep as many Republicans away from the ballot box as possible, a tax increase that would be brought to the people was really problematic. People I spoke to in Sacramento said that was actually the reason why a lot of people didn't want to go on the record supporting this, even if they believed it. Now, that's political cowardice at the same time, right? I mean, there is some practicality, but the cowardice here is that if progressives are going to lead, they're going to lead in California. They've always been first on most progressive issues here in the state of California. So that when you go then and you say, well, here's something that, statewide, this CalCare, this is publicly funded healthcare. If we're not going to test it and be able to sort of have the chutzpah to do it in California, then where is it going to be done? But it really was because working against them in California was the fact that this is something, this tax increase is something that would go to the voters as well, rather than stay in Sacramento. And that's a big problem in California.
Yeah, I mean, look, I get it's an election year. I mean, the downside is 50% of years are congressional election years. The ones that aren't often have special elections that we would be worried about. The one next year is going to be a big Democratic presidential primary year, in theory, at least. So that's also, it's just there's a lot of time that can get carved out as too dangerous to do anything.
No question. That's what I'm saying. There's never a perfect time, so why not just do it? There is an elevated fear of getting onto the ballot in an even year election, some kind of a referendum that voters are going to have to vote on to raise taxes, to somehow come up with the funds for paying for this. And that was in the assembly. They knew that. And I think it was just a reluctance to bring a vote on a tax increase at a time after COVID and at a time after pandemic, or during pandemic, we should say. There is political practicality to that, but again, it's consistent with the politics of fear rather than saying, no, we are going to do this because most people want this, right? I mean, healthcare is something that is popular among the populace. So that's why you push it forward. And I sort of think you have to have a little bit of nerve. You have to have an ability to bring this without fear. And Democrats are not good at bringing things forward without fear.
Yeah, and then look, they have a supermajority in the assembly. Like at a certain point, what is a mandate for?
Right.
And just business as usual, maybe. Look, I agree that I think fear is definitely a part of it. I think that there is money as well. We're going to turn to that in a sec. It's really fast, just to add a little bit of context to what we're talking about. AB 1400 would have created a publicly financed healthcare system called CalCare, which would cost between $314 billion and $391 billion in state and federal funds. So they we currently in California spend about $330 billion on healthcare, so somewhere in the middle of what that system would cost. They were considering in one of Calra's other bills that also we did get a vote on, a 1% payroll tax increase for those earning basically more than $50,000. And yeah, obviously this what I'm about to show you isn't enough by itself to pay for it, but we have this record budget that just got, or I don't know if it was approved yet. I think it was approved, but there's a projection of a $46 billion surplus in California. So again, that by itself isn't going to buy single payer healthcare, but we are basically paying that amount, and the state is generating a surplus. The other side of the money thing is the lobbying effort against this. So you had the California Chamber of Commerce saying it's going to be a job killer, and they, combined with dozens of different insurers and industry groups and associations, have run social media ads and put out letters attacking this and trying to scare Democrats away from it. Now, on the other side, you do have activists. You have, for instance, California nurses, which we'll go to in a minute. But you also had sort of high-level proponents of this. So supposedly, Governor Gavin Newsom was a fan. He endorsed single payer during his campaign for governor, but he has declined to comment on what just happened. In 2017, he was outspoken in support of creating a system. Now, not so much, doesn't want to talk about it, probably thinking about running for president. And there's nothing that launches you into a presidential primary like being the guy who in theory could have made this happen and didn't. I mean, I guess you'll still get money from insurance, like lobby, like big pharma and stuff like that. You get those donations. There are going to be lots of people running in the primary for 2024 that get money from big corporations. There aren't going to be a lot of ones who set up a single payer healthcare system in the fourth largest economy in the world. So again, it feels like more of the cowardice that you were talking about it, and I'm absolutely sick of it. I don't know why the Democrats aren't as scared of continuing to accomplish almost nothing in the eyes of the people. I wish they could be scared of that like they are about, oh no, the taxes went up by 1%.
Right. I mean, and yeah, I have a difficult time putting this at the feet of the governor. And the governor is on the record already saying that it's something that he's interested in doing. That he's not talking about it is fine. He's saying, all right, this is the domain of the legislature. But as you said, you have a supermajority. If not now, when? And if this is an issue that a lot of Californians are passionate about, why be afraid of it? And you can make the argument that there is that this will. Look, everybody says, and Democrats always say this will pay for itself. It's always, it varies between partially true and mostly true, and that's a good zone to be in politics. But what they have to understand is there's a way to spin this, even if there is a tax increase that goes to the people, right? I mean, they are going to have to vote on a referendum, a proposition to raise a tax. There are ways to go against that and say that that's not really going to, that this is not an exact tax increase. This is a reallocation of funds that the people are going to have. I mean, you can play with the language of this.
I agree.
But the crux of it is that they need to be a little ballsier about this, and eventually that's going to happen. It hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely think that should be a part of the argument. And when I bring up Gavin Newsom, I'm not saying that he single-handedly killed it or anything like that, but he's who's bigger in California? Like, he should be weighing in. Biden isn't responsible for whether the mansion and cinema ever move on the filibuster, but he could certainly be very vocal about it. Like, yeah. In any event, I want to give you a response from some who'd been pushing for this for some time. California Nurses Association said, nurses condemn this failure by elected representatives to put patients above profits, especially during the worst surge of COVID-19 yet, at a time when it's more clear than ever before that healthcare must be a right, not just a privilege for those who can afford it. Nurses are especially outraged that Calvert chose to just give up on patients across the state. Nurses never give up on our patients, and we will keep fighting with our allies in the grassroots movement for CalCare until all people in California can get the care they need, regardless of ability to pay. So look, they're obviously, they're gonna be a bit frustrated about this, and this is certainly time when public health, like the stakes have been even more real for the last 2 years than before. A lot of the economic components of it have become very real for a lot of people, a lot of families. And so we're just once again wondering, like back in 2017, the last time that they had a chance and they didn't do it. Like, Michael, are you free sometime in like 2027 to come back on, and we could talk about the next iteration of this?
Well, am I gonna have to wait that long again? I mean,
maybe
a few months long enough. Yeah, but yeah, I guess I'm probably free to talk about this. I mean, look, you have to be hopeful, right? I mean, you have to be hopeful that they're getting incrementally closer. But this is the really frustrating part: is they are set up to do this now. This is the time to do this because they have the support to do it. They have nurses behind them. They have people behind them. They have the supermajority. I don't know what has to change. And if it's fear of a referendum, if it's fear of going and having people having to raise the taxes, and that will bring people out who might not ordinarily vote, I think that's a small number of people, to be honest.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.